The Storm infographic is out. What is best in Dimension Duel, Omega War, and Alliance Raid? Let's get into it. Alright, so this is my Storm infographic. She did get nerfed. She is not as strong as she was, but she can still compete in most of these game modes. Now, as a reminder, this is patch 2.0.3, which is our current Wolverine patch. If there's a future patch, this will not necessarily always hold up. I will make new ones whenever that happens. Best armor set, Steampunk is special. I put Hydra as regional. You can go Xanderth. I just believe that Defense Pierce is easier to come by because of the new Wolverine card that has Defense Pierce as its exclusive. Our top stats are PvP decrease, Defense Pierce, PvP increase, shock damage, and crit damage. I put Hulk as the best companion. You do have options. There are some people using Thor to some success, as well as Daredevil or Icarus. Then we talk about the skills. The skills will make a lot more sense when we talk about the traits, but I'll explain it once we talk about it. So first, we're starting with Atmokinesis, Nature's Strength. This gives you stamina recovery. It is also technically a lightning class cloud skill, which will make sense once we get into the specializations. You have the option of the first version of here, Wall of Lightning, to give you a defense buff. I just don't believe in Dimension Duel the defense buff matters that much. Then we go into our hardest hitting skill, Electrocution. If you've ever played Storm or played against her, you know this is the one that hurts. Then we talk about Icicle Crash Snowstorm Shield. This is the bubble. And just to give you a little bit of math on it, so when you have max cooldown as well as the specialization, which we'll talk about, the bubble is on 6.75 second cooldown. It lasts for 2.85 seconds, which leaves you with 3.9 seconds of targetability. As I'll explain, you will get a full dodge during this time, so that's another 2 seconds cut off the clock. So you are targetable and able to take damage for 1.9 seconds out of every 6.75. And you get to dictate those. So the realistic thing here is in between bubbles, because you control when the bubble happens and you control when you go out of bubble, you control when you dodge, obviously. That 1.9 is really like 1.5, which gives your opponent a pretty good window, but very, very small at 1.5 seconds where they can actually damage you. Then we go into Lightning Attack Cloud Pursuit. This is a very good one into your bubble. And what happens here is you throw the Cloud Pursuit, it follows them, then they are either going to run away or chase after or come after you. Then you go into bubble, and then they're stuck with a lightning cloud just sitting on top of them. Last but not least, we have Atmosphere Control Electric Explosion. It's just another lightning class skill. You're probably never going to touch it. It does do damage over time in the area, so you can have some interesting spots. Like if someone's stuck in an animation, let's say a Widow doing concentrated fire that you sidestepped, you can throw this on top of her, and then she effectively has to use a dodge or die if you do that into electrocution. For our mega cards, we have crit damage, defense pierce, cooldown, and the veteran card. Remember that the veteran card can roll cooldown in the middle stats. Next, let's talk about her specializations. First thing we got here is dodge gauge recovery. So it's going to increase your dodge gauge recovery by 35%, period, the end. This is going to, on average, give you it every 4 seconds. So during the bubble window, you will always have a full dodge during that time. Then we talk about the one that matters right here, heavy snow. Decreases freeze class skills by 27.5% regardless of max value. That regardless of max value wasn't there before. It's been added to clarify some things. And our only freeze on our board is the bubble. So that makes it 77.5% cooldown, which is ridiculous on your invulnerability type skill. Bubble has gotten worse because it did last for 4 seconds when you added the invulnerability, things like that. So it in total the bubble lost 1.15 seconds of invulnerability, which if we added that to our current thing we talked about, which was 1.9, so you would only be vulnerable for 0.75 seconds. And if we do the same variable of you control when it happens, and so it's a little bit less, it's really 0.55 or 0.65 seconds, which is ridiculous. Last but not least, we have rainy season. Increase all skill damage by 30% and stamina by 30%. And where's it at? Rain Ritual increases shock damage by 5% for every equipped lightning class skill, which we have 4. So it increases 20% shock damage. Next, let's get into Omega War. In Omega War, it's really close to the same for Dimension Duel. It's just a slightly different style. So it's still the same armor sets with Steampunk Hydra. You can use Xanderth, but I prefer Hydra because of the new Wolverine card. Top stats: PvP decrease, defense pierce, PvP increase, shock damage, and crit damage. Then for best companion, we have Mighty Thor, because if they're grouped up, you do more damage. It's also excellent with Storm because they usually group up on your bubble. You do have the option, if you don't have Mighty Thor, of using regular Thor, because he will do damage based off of your shock damage, and we will talk about some ways how you can use that in a second. As far as skills, we're using almost exactly the same skill setup, but a few variations. So on the number 2 slot, this was our electrocution. I'm currently suggesting Chain Lightning because it can hit multiple targets. But if you want to be a point catcher, someone that goes after the point leader, you would use Electrocution. The other one that I would say is up to debate is number 4, Lightning Attack, Cloud Pursuit. This is the one that chases people around. It can also do AoE, so it can affect other people. The third version of it, Thunder Crash, which does AoE around you. If you're more of a group fighter, this can be more damage. Then we're using the same cards as before for the same reasons, the same traits, and why I say you can use Thor instead of Mighty Thor if you're unable to get Mighty Thor is because Cloud Pursuit and Chain Lightning are going to put some shock on the board, and Thor does bonus damage on shocked targets. Next, let's get into Alliance Raid and Dark Zone. Alright, for Alliance Raid and Dark Zone, these are single target bosses. If you're doing AoE multi-target, your build will be different with more whirlwind type skills. Still using Steampunk and Hydra. Top stats: defense, pierce, supervillain damage, shock damage, crit damage, total damage. Punisher as best companion. You can still use Thor. For the reasons listed above, he does bonus damage on shocked targets. You will be applying shock. And if you want to do buff companions such as Cersei, Kate Bishop, Athena, that will help your team. For skills, we're still using the cooldown ability, Atmokinesis, Nature Strength. We're back to using Weather Witch, Electrocution, because we're back on single target at this point. Then instead of Bubble, we're using the same skill loadout, the same ability, but we are using Explosive Hail. This does a lot of chill damage. This can also be dodge canceled for the animation to go quicker. It doesn't mess with the crit rate or anything. We'll talk about that in another video. It just makes the damage happen quicker and you're not stuck in the animation. Then I still like using Cloud Pursuit because it does do good damage. But if you just want flat out more damage, but will give you some stamina issues, unless you have really, really good stamina, would be the third version, Thunder Crash. Last but not least, we are still using Atmosphere Control Electric Explosion because it just stays on the target and does the most damage if the target is unmoving. Now, if you want, the last two abilities are kind of catch-alls and are mostly being used for our second spec. But if you don't care about the second spec and want to move things around, you can do some wind or chill type skills. Now let's talk about the specs. We are using, where's it at? 50% chance to recover 50% stamina when using a skill. That's why the last two, you can have the option of higher stamina type skills. The second one is 5% shock damage per lightning cloud, which we have 20%. Then we are using 30% bonus damage for 30% more stamina. And last but not least, we are using Create Chain Lightning. Spreads up to 3 targets. If you're fighting something like MODOK, Thanos, things like that, this will hit the other targets. But it does 135% attack on an 8-second cooldown. So it's just random, boom, here's more damage, boom, here's more damage, boom, here's more damage. You don't need the light, you don't need the dodge gauge, and you don't need the chill cooldown. If you want to use Stormsicle, the third one, and you want to go more into that, you can take out that fourth spec or even the second spec and go more towards ice, especially with the one that we talked about in the other ones, Heavy Snow, giving you 27.5% more cooldown just because. That can compete, but then your gear would be more towards the chill, and that can compete in some single target gameplay, but shock still outweighs chill in most game modes. Let me know if you guys think I missed anything. I talked to a lot of top storms on this one. After the nerf, also before the nerf. Then the nerf happened. Then we had to do more testing, but put a lot of care into this one. And until next time, guys.